December 6, 2021. You're listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Don.
And we're back again.
Back.
Yeah, I know now two people that have caught COVID and had been vaccinated.
Yeah.
I don't go off of reports in the news and stuff, but oddly, both are in their early 20s, which is unusual to me because they should have had a strong response to the vaccine. Their antibodies should still be pretty high. And yeah, that's unusual. And it's not that they have that Omicron or Omicron, depending on if you're from England or the United States, because that's not in Ohio yet, basically, as of right now.
Right.
But yeah, so anyway, it sounds like, for some people, the immunity is waning. So far, I've managed to avoid catching the damn thing myself, even though I go out. So, so far, so good. I am going to get my booster on Saturday, which is the maiden voyage day. So I'm not sure. We'll see. If I feel like garbage, I'm not going to go to maiden voyage because, I'm not going to have loud music and people screaming in my face and shit,
Right.
While I'm not feeling so well. But if I feel fine, then maybe I'll go. We'll see.
Yeah.
Weather depending, too. It's not like I haven't seen them before, and it's not like they're going to play new tracks or anything.
Right.
This is our new song. Like, what?
This is off the new Iron Maiden album. Like, wait.
Actually, Maiden is coming,
Yeah, that new album out.
They're not coming to Cleveland, though. They're going to be in Columbus. Yeah. And I thought about going because Within Temptation is opening, and they're okay. They're like, and I would be like one of the few people that know who they are. So I would be like, yay. But yeah, I'm not going to go to Columbus and see Maiden. It's just, it'd be too expensive and everything.
Right.
But yeah, the Omicron, as of right now, they don't know too much about it. Now, everybody presses the panic button, and that might be good in a way because we need to get society to a point where when there's a very lethal virus that we lock down travel. You know what I mean? Like, don't bring that shit over here kind of thing. Yeah. It is already here, but, maybe it's not here and spreading like crazy right now because they're mostly catching people that just got off flights and things like that. So, but anyway, what, Fauci said today, but I've also heard this from the original doctor, and it might be where he got his information from is, Omicron might be mild. Like, scientifically, the more a virus mutates, the milder it should get. And that's not always going to be the case, but that's what generally tends to happen because the virus that spreads the furthest and lasts the longest is the virus that wins, right? Of all the variants, because if a virus kills you, you can't spread the virus anymore, so you're limiting the number of people that can get infected, where here with Omicron, it's mild maybe, and it's also very contagious, more contagious. So basically, because the woman in South Africa had said that patients were coming in with these unusual symptoms of being very fatigued and having a light cough, and they did not lose sense of smell or taste, and I think maybe they had a little bit of sinus, but that was about it. And she kept getting the same symptoms in. So she was like, I wonder if we're dealing with a variant. And so, they ran tests. And as of today, 12/6, it's no one has died from the Omicron variant. Now, it takes a while to die from COVID. You know what I mean? Unless you have some weird reaction to it. It generally takes, time for it to develop, get, bad. And then, so that's not unusual, but it's still possibly this thing where it's mild. And if it is mild, it might be relegated to a cold. And so if you get the Omicron variant, it might be good because, like, if you're going to catch one of them, that would be like potentially the one to get, because all you're going to do is like feel like you got a cold, like if you get Delta, you might die, So, so it may turn out that Omicron is actually, beneficial, and it may be the one to get, so to speak, or be exposed to. But I'm not saying to run out and get any of them.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm going to go get my booster shot, and whatever. I don't know. Yeah, that's all I'm going to mention about that. Anything new with you today? Or this week?
Anything new? No.
Did you pick up from a new restaurant, door dashing, go to someplace new? Like, wow,
No.
I've never heard of this place before.
No, because I just usually go to the same places. I always pick the places that I like that are easy.
Ah, okay. The ones you
because like sometimes you get like they'll be like, go to McDonald's, and it's like a big huge order and it's a lot of money, and it's like, oh wow. But then you're thinking about it, you're like, that line's going to be around the building, the lobby's not going to be open,
right?
And you know what? I don't feel like sitting in a drive-through line for 30 minutes, so you skip them. But
gotcha.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, there probably is, but I'm just.
Whatever. If you think of it, no big deal.
Yeah.
So this week I wanted to talk about lately in the news. It hasn't been on a lot, but lately people have been talking about Russia maybe getting ready to invade the Ukraine. Mm-hmm. There's been a buildup of troops on their border, something like 90,000 troops. And Putin has had rhetoric in the past where, he doesn't really think of the Ukraine as its own country. And he doesn't like the fact that we patrol in the Black Sea and everything with the Ukrainian Navy, what there is of it. And yeah. Mm-hmm. And what he doesn't want is the Ukraine to join NATO, because then he would have NATO right on his doorstep, and he doesn't really want that. Not that he doesn't now, because there's other countries that are in NATO that are on his doorstep, but whatever. So anyway, there's this buildup of troops, and the news is like any moment he could invade and stuff like that. And we're sending, diplomatic. We had our Secretary of State meet their ambassador, and then Biden's going to talk to Putin, and basically we have this whole big thing of sanctions that we'll put on them if they decide to invade the Ukraine. And yeah, so first I'll say this, okay? It's very unlikely that he's going to invade in December. Like, it's cold. There's this thing called the Russian winter. Yes, he could do it, but progress would be slow going. And you don't want to get caught in a slog at all in this kind of a thing. So I don't think if he's going to do it, he's going to do it now. This could be staging for like a spring offensive. Let's get everything over there. Let's invade in the spring. Maybe. But the problem is that the way I see it, he's got about 90,000 troops over there right now. That's about 9 divisions. You're not really going to take over a country as large as the Ukraine with just 9 divisions, because, most of those guys don't do the fighting. It's not like 90,000 guys with guns and bayonets run over the border like, a lot of this stuff is all sophisticated these days. You've got a lot of administration, people in the background. You've got supply and transport and all this sort of stuff. So while it seems like 90,000 troops is a lot, when you break it down, you're probably only going to end up with like 30,000 troops or something over the border, actually performing operations. and trying to handle millions of civilians, probably not realistic. Now, some people say, well, he could add more troops to what's already there, and by springtime and have like 200,000 troops ready to go. He could. One thing that it would tell you, though, is like basically most of the troops in Russia, not all, but most of the troops are like they're like compulsive, like, conscription type of thing. And they they only serve active for, so many months, etc. And so they would have to make a change in the law or a decree or whatever the heck it is over there to basically say, like our stop loss, like you guys can't leave because we're going to go to war. You know what I mean? And at which point our intelligence would know. I mean, that would be broadcast. I mean, people would know about that since there's so many people in the military all over the country. We would hear about it, and then we would be like, maybe they're planning something, because they have a stop loss now and they're allowing themselves to build up their troops. But even then, I think currently right now, the Russian military is only like around 250,000, 270,000 troops. And, that's for, everything they've got going on. And yes, they've got a population. Sure, they could recruit new guys and everything, but we live in a different time. It's not like World War II where they just handed you a rifle and said, go out there and shoot. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You got to learn a bunch of things to become effective. Now, at the same time, that also means you don't need as many troops because, air power and everything can pummel a lot of targets and you don't need as much. But still, with the civilians, like you go into some of these big cities where you've got millions of people, like it's hard to control all of that. So I just think that like it's a lot of probably just saber rattling on Putin's part. And if he does, my thought process here is this, like he probably doesn't want, like, let's say he does want to invade in some way, shape, or form. He probably doesn't want to take over all of the Ukraine because he probably doesn't want the Ukrainians that are in the Ukraine to be like under him because they would just be noisy. They would protest. They wouldn't like him. They would, cause problems, all sorts of stuff because they're not Russians. They're Ukrainians. But there's Russians who live in Ukraine because that's just the way the Soviet Union was. Hey, you're going to go work in the Ukraine. You know what I mean? But I'm Russian. Well, you're going over there anyway. And you and your family are going to go work. And so there's whole towns and everything. And that's what kind of happened in the east of the country where you had this flare up in the Donetsk region where the ethnic Russians that live there revolted against the Ukrainian government with the help of Russia, right? And Russia came in with the intention of essentially seizing the Crimea, which is sort of like it's kind of like a peninsula, but it's more like a big island that's right off the coast in the Black Sea there, just below the Sea of Azov. And they wanted that because that's where their nuclear missile submarine base is at. And it's also their only warm water port, right? So it doesn't freeze in the winter. So they weren't going to let that go to like a NATO friendly country when they had the overthrow of the Russian friendly leader for the Western leader that they currently have. So they came in with their unbranded uniforms and stuff and took over the Crimea without much fight because the people that were there were essentially, most of them were essentially Russian. And they're like, oh, you guys are here? Oh, all right, cool. Go ahead and take over. Like, we're not going to fight you or anything. And then what happened is that then in the, like, further north, you had this Donetsk region, which is outside the Crimea, but it's like on the eastern side of the Ukraine, bordering Russia. And those people revolted, hoping that Putin and his army would come in and liberate that part of the country. But that didn't happen. So that's still kind of ongoing, but it's it's like its own country right now, but it's, it's in dispute. You could look at that as a puppet state or whatever. It's called the Donetsk People's Republic. The Ukraine doesn't have control over it. It is what it is at the moment. So now, if Putin was going to invade, so you have this thing, like in the north part, you have this Donetsk People's Republic that's, bordering Russia. Then you have this city just below it that's kind of a major city for the Ukraine called Mariupol. And then below that, you have Kiev. And then just to the west of, not Kiev, just below you have the Crimea. And then just to the west of the Crimea, you have Odessa, which is a major port in the Black Sea for the Ukrainians. And then further, you get like into other countries. But bordering right there next to Odessa is Transnistria, which is also another one of these breakaway republics. It broke away from Moldova, and it wants to get back with Russia. It wants to join Russia. It's Russian people. They have their own country. It's kind of a bullshit country, but whatever. It's called Transnistria. Okay, so if you're Putin, what do? Well, you want to get the Ukraine out of the Black Sea. You don't want them performing military exercises, building a navy, threatening your border. If they become NATO friendly, you don't want all that right there. So you invade and you take Mariupol. So now you have an eastern buffer. You have the Donetsk People's Republic above it. Mariupol has been seized, and it goes all the way down to the Kiev. So now you've got a buffer between the Ukraine and Russia. And then you just continue to go west, and you take out Odessa, and now you have completely removed the Ukraine from having any sea access to the Black Sea. So if they just did that, which is what I'm betting, if he's going to invade, that's what he's shooting to do, then he ends up, strangling the Ukraine because they'd lose about 40 to 50% of their economy, losing access to the Black Sea. And he would then create his buffer zone while at the same time leaving the noisy Ukrainians and all of the NATO nonsense away, leaving them into basically a smaller country, being like, you can continue to be a country, but you'll be a smaller country and you won't have access to the Black Sea and you won't be bordering Russia. And so that's what I think might be the plan, because I just don't think he wants to take the whole country. Now, that doesn't mean that if there's an initial invasion, and he wants to knock out the infrastructure over there to stop them from retaliating and all that kind of stuff, that they wouldn't bomb Kiev and other targets all over the country of the Ukraine. But I think that where they would basically land or end up with is just how I described it, leaving this sort of blockade around the Black Sea. We'll see. I still think it's probably not going to happen. But, Putin is just a wild card. He invaded Georgia, the state of Georgia. I don't remember. No, the country Georgia.
Yeah.
And, he did the similar things. He took Abkhazia, which is a territory in Georgia. And, people will forgive me. I can't remember. It's amazing I remember Abkhazia off the top of my head. He's, took this territory away. They became their own fake republics, right? They're still Russian controlled. And, the Russia continues to move a fence more and more south, taking up more and more of Georgia's territory, in order to expand this area. And then Georgia is another one of those countries that's not in NATO. But he creates this buffer zone. And so, yeah, we'll have to see what happens, but we're not going to go fight over there for them because they're not in NATO. But we do have NATO allies like Moldova, and we don't want them to think that if Russia comes in, it's like, hey, we're gonna link up with Transnistria, that we would let that happen because they're a NATO ally. and we don't want Russia to roll over us in order, seizing territory. And so that could get a little bit strained right there with our relationships with these countries. So, I don't know. It could be interesting, but it's probably just mostly bluster. It's not really, convenient to fight a war, when your economy's not great, like Russia's isn't great. I don't think it would help him politically or anything like that. But you never know. But that's kind of where I'm kind of landed on it. So we'll see.
Fair enough.
I watch too much news. So I was thinking today, because I was listening back on the old shows, because I've been listening to them as I go for walks and stuff, going over some of the things we talked about in the past. And, one thing I was thinking of talking about, and, is when we got out of high school, right? And none of us really went to college. Like in our group of people, I don't know, like, I don't want to say people didn't go, but I don't know, like, if people did anything constructive with college, let's say. Tom did.
One
right?
person. Yeah, one person went to college.
Tom went to Ohio State, and he did well, and works at NASA, sort of. So he worked out okay. But, some people might have went to, like, community college. Some people might have went to something, Cleveland State or something, but didn't last, or who knows? Like, I don't know if Dan went someplace. Probably not, I don't know if...
I know.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I know Rom signed up to go to CSU.
Yeah, CSU,
Cleveland State.
Right.
And then he went for like the first day and then never went back.
Right. Like Gary, maybe Gary went somewhere like that, but Gary always seemed like a trade school kind of guy anyway.
Yeah, he's a glacier now.
Yeah.
He works with Windows.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of how all of these guys were. I mean, Mole's in college now doing criminal law at 50 or whatever. We talked about that. But so like nobody really went to college, and not including the girls. I don't know. Some of the girls probably did. But yeah, the guys didn't. And so it makes me think, like, when you got out of high school, like, what were you thinking what was going to happen next? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, what were you thinking you were going to do at that point?
Just work.
Get your own place and just have a job, and that was going to be, you know what I mean? Like, did you have any long-term idea of what you wanted to do?
Of course not. But here's the thing you got to remember is your first year out of high school, I was still in high school.
True.
So that first year,
but I just mean like in general,
I was just hating life. I just wanted to get out of there. But right. No, in general, my thought was, I'll just work. I'm just going to get a good job, and I'm just going to work. And that'll, pay the bills and do everything. And when I can, I'll move out and I'll do all that. Get my own place and stuff. But
yeah,
it didn't work out like that.
Well, I mean, it's like, okay, well, I thought I was probably going to get married at some point. And that didn't happen. That relationship fell apart for me. But, I ultimately had to get a job that paid me enough where I could get by on my own, which at that time I think was about $10 an hour, which was a lot at that point. Like, trying to get a job that paid you $10 an hour, it wasn't like a lot, but somebody had, and I mean full time.
No.
It couldn't be part time. It had to be full time, $10 an hour. And then I knew that if I got that, I would be okay. Like, like that would be enough. I could get an apartment. I wouldn't have to share it with somebody. And right. I could survive the rest of my life working this one job for that amount of money.
Just doing your own thing.
Getting my yearly raise or whatever it is. Yep. And just making it, etc. But right. Yeah, like you said, it didn't really work out. Like I came out of school thinking, okay, I'm going to be a chef, and I gave it a good try for about 2.5 years, basically. I went in full time, started out pastry chefing for about a year. I hated it. I got up really early in the morning, had to get downtown. And the only way to get downtown was either to take the bus, which took a long time from where I lived in Broadview Heights, or I had to drive and pay for parking, which was expensive to park in the middle of Cleveland, downtown Cleveland. And when you're not making that much money, like when you get paid $5 an hour and parking costs $5, like the first hour I'm working is just to park my car there, you know? And then I probably spent, you know, gas prices were cheaper back then, but I probably spent another half hour on gas to get to working back because gas was cheaper, but cars weren't efficient. You know what I mean? Like my Camaro probably was like 10 miles to the gallon or something terrible. So,
and it's not, and you like you said, you were kind of far,
right?
Even though it was like a straight shot up 77,
right?
But in the morning, it's just busy. It's, you know,
especially back then,
driving slow
because we had BP still and we had TRW still, so there was a lot of people driving into downtown. Unlike there even is today, you know what I mean? Like there's less people in Cleveland now. There's more people in Northeast Ohio, but there's less going on in Cleveland. And so, and we just don't have the same big businesses we had. Cause you're right. Traffic was murderous back then. But yeah, so, you know, I did that. And then I eventually transferred into, I did, you know, kind of like your standard room service line cook type of thing. So that's basically like you make anything. And then I transferred into fine dining and I did that for about 7 months. And then when my chef was leaving the company, I decided I would leave too. And I basically asked Cease, because, you know, we were living together at the time. And I was like, hey, man, can I work with you at your job? And he's like, I guess it's pretty boring. He wasn't kidding. And it paid like, it paid less. It was like $4.50 an hour or something. And I was like, yeah, I'll just do that because I would rather like not stink like a kitchen and work a regular like 9 to 5 type of job than to go in at the crack of dawn and leave sometime in the evening. You never knew when because there were banquets. And so you just, you know, you had this, and when you're in pastry, especially, you have to, you know, be there for dessert. So if it's a banquet, you're going to wait a long time through the evening to serve dessert. And when I was in fine dining, well, then you're working until the restaurant closes. So, you know, you start a little bit later, which is better, but, you know, you start working around 1 o'clock or something, and then you're out of there at like, you know, 11 at night. And it's just kicking my ass. Everybody else is out having fun, and I'm working my balls off all the time. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not going to make any money doing this because you got to be European. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get your own restaurant unless you're a French guy. That's how it was back then. And so, then I went to work with Cease. But at the same time, the guys at a couple of the guys at the restaurant there were like, hey, we're working at Tiffany's at night. You want to work with us there? And I'm like, I don't know. It sounds kind of cool because it's a strip joint. It sounds dangerous. And I have a bit of a crazy streak in me that I know people I sound real straight edge all the time, but Donnie can tell you that there's times in my life where I'm just nuts when I do dumb things. And so somebody says something to me like, hey, you want to go work someplace dangerous? I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, there have been times where I've just like, you've just walked up to me and just said the craziest stuff, and I just have to look at you and be like, are you being serious right now? Yeah, I'm serious. Let's go do this. And it's just like, what? like what?
I don't know what it is. Like I need a thrill or something, but yeah, it gets a little bit weird. But anyway, that paid $7.50 an hour. And I went in there, and the two guys, the one guy immediately left. Like, he couldn't do that job. Like, he was just like, that, I'm not working this place. And the other guy had like a drug problem and got fired like a week later. And so I had only worked with Cease at that point for like a month or something. And I was like, I'm going to go work at this place, I think full time, because it's paying me $7.50. And, this electronic assembly job that I got working with Cease only paid $4.50 an hour. And Cease ended up working there for a little while too at night, but he went back working for, the other job, but he got paid more because he went to school for it and they were giving him more money. I don't know. I think he was a bit crazy. Strip joint job was better. But he just didn't like it. But, at that point, like, I was probably about three years after school, right? So we're talking like 94, maybe. And that was just before I got my first computer job, which, was actually like a big decision in the sense of, I made a choice that I was like, this is an opportunity to get into computers. I'm not going to get into it with my education. I didn't go to college. This guy's offering me a job, entry-level job, but it's full-time. And, but it's going to pay me like $4.50 an hour again, right? I'm going to take a $3 an hour pay cut. And I was also getting tips at that point too, because I was working as a bar back. They never lowered my wage. So I was making $7.50 an hour plus tips, which was pretty good at that point. But I was also like, looking at the big picture and things like, how long am I going to work at this place before I get knifed, or shot or, boot stomped in the parking lot, When I would drive into work, there would be Kevin Vinoy, because he worked there too as a floorman, like punching some guy in the face in the parking lot. And I would just be like, oh, you're throwing somebody out, He like had a walkie-talkie and he beat some guy in the head with it. And you know what I mean? The flats at that time, I mean, it's probably still this way in some respects, but it was at nighttime when you're leaving at 2 a.m, it's not safe, And so, it was just a mental decision. Like, I'm going to go for this computer job and do my best at it, et cetera. And still, that's at this point, I'm living in the graveyard apartment in Fairview, and only making $4.50 an hour. I'm not making the magical $10 an hour that I talked about at the beginning here. I'm still making $4.50 an hour working full time. And it was fucking rough. Like, my cars were always breaking down. There's nothing worse than like having your car just shit the bed and you need, like, the guy's like, that's going to be $800. And you're like, I do not have that money. Like we just
like,
talked
I got $8.
Car. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I got $8. My next paycheck's coming. It's going to be like $400, but I got to pay rent and buy food and have gas and pay for parking and everything else. So it took a long time out of that. It was a battle, but I think those first 5 years, like, was just like a weird sort of transitionary period, because kind of came out of high school relieved, like, whew, high school's over, like, I'm done with that shit. Like, fuck that place. I'm done. I'm not going back. People are crazy. I'm just going to get a job. I'm going to work. I got my girlfriend. She's smart. She's going to college. We're going to make it. And then you end up like in a little efficiency apartment, by yourself, barely getting by, just fucking awful. And, I don't know, man. I don't know if you have, like, I know you worked at Chi-Chi's for the longest time at that point.
Well, when we left high school, I was working at Chi-Chi's. I started there when I was 16. So I worked there passed through graduation and then after graduation. So like, just like you, I was working those Friday and Saturday nights, just like you.
Absolutely.
And sometimes after work, I think once in a while, not all the time, I would drive all the way out to North Royalton because it'd be like, dude, everybody's at some party, everybody's out, everybody's doing something. But it was like you're like, well, I'm going to be up for a couple hours. I'd be like, all right, well, I'm going to come out there, and I'd come out there and hang out with you for like an hour.
Right. Oh, the Broadview Heights place. Yeah.
The Broadview Heights. Yeah, Broadview Heights. Not Royalton. Sorry. You'd be watching like X-Men cartoons and stuff.
Right.
No,
like, I remember. Okay. Yeah. I probably had some video.
And then,
check this out. This is bullshit.
Yeah. That was around the Motorhead video game. time.
Yeah, the Motorhead video.
Remember
game. I
that?
remember that. Yeah.
But during this time when you were transitioning to the cemetery apartment,
Right.
I was in Oklahoma.
Right.
In
Right.
93, 94. That's when me and Ron went to Oklahoma. And that's
you
when
talked about that on a Donnie story, but
yeah,
like I realize that, you know, the way this story goes, of course, and you know, people can go back and listen to that. But you know, this guy's like, hey, you guys want to make money selling this movie phone type of thing? Come on out, you know, and you and Ram go out there with this expectation that, you know, this is going to be some money, et cetera, and everything. But at the same time, like with you, I'm curious because like that was a big transition in general, right? Like, weren't you living at home or something at that point? So like you decided I'm moving out, I'm moving across the country, I'm living with Ram, and I'm going to sell something I've no idea anything about it. You know what I mean?
Nobody's ever heard anything about it.
Right. Like this was a big, like, I mean, this was like a big lift to do all of those things at the same time. Like, can you tell me a little bit about what was going through your head at that point? Like, I don't think you were crazy, but like, you just wanted to get out.
I think there was that, because I had Ram, it was originally Ram who got the offer from this dude in Oklahoma.
Right.
Because they're buddies. They're buddies through Kiss. They're
of course
Kiss fans. I was gonna say they're Kiss buddies, but that just sounds a little false. So he's like, yeah. He goes, I got this guy, and he's got this new thing that's this dial a film, and da 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 da, and it's da da da, and it was just his movie phone was starting to take off.
Right.
So it was like, oh, I understand what you're saying. And he was like, you're going to be able to order tickets online, or not online, but over the phone. You can use your credit card. They'll be ready for you. You get reserved seats. Da, da, da. And I'm like, this is stupid. There's no movie theaters that are going to do that. Of course, now 2021, that's all they do. But it was just like, what? That's crazy. That's insane. And then he like showed me the numbers, and he was like, he goes, just come with me. He kind of convinced me, you know, he's like, dude, I don't want to go by myself. He's like, then I got to live there by myself. And it's like, you know, it'd be cool if you were there. Cause like, if you came with me, we're buds and everything's cool and we'll make all this money and then we can come move back if we want, you know, it's like, and it was just kind of like, I thought, okay, I mean, what really, what do I have to lose? Cause I was like, 21. So it's like, okay. And I remember telling my mom and dad, I was like, hey, I'm going to go move to Oklahoma City with Kevin Round. And they're just like, what?
And they just
were like, yeah. They're just like, okay. Like, what's the deal? And I was like, this guy's going to make all this money and da 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 da. Little did my parents know that 3 months after moving to Oklahoma, I was going to call them up and be like, hey, can you send me some money so I can get the hell out of here? Because we were flat broke. There was, I mean, I almost got a job out there. I was like, the only thing that was stopping me was like, dude, if I get a job here, I'm going to be stuck here. Dude, like now I have nothing holding me.
I will say this, like people out there that are listening, like Don has always been a fairly thin dude. Like he's never been, I would never say you were big and fat, right? But I would say before you went to Oklahoma, due to maybe the drinking and the flashes, you know what I mean? That you were probably heavier than you had been, right? You were kind of a heavier dude. Not like a big fat guy, but just heavier than you had been. And when these guys got back, I mean, how long were you gone for? 3 months or something?
3 months.
3 months. Yeah. Like, I mean, you must have lost like 50 pounds or something, man. You guys look kind of gaunt. It was crazy.
I survived on peanut butter and these really small turkey sandwiches we used to get at the grocery store.
I mean, I think you barely ate. Like, I mean, it just seemed like you guys just didn't eat. Like, I know you made spaghetti a lot.
We didn't.
Or something. Yeah. I mean, you guys just
we didn't because we didn't have money. We didn't.
Yeah.
We were there for 3 months. We had enough money for 3 months rent. And because we figured, hey, man, 3 months, the money's got to start rolling in. And then we did one of these. This dude sent us into a movie theater and he's like, okay, go sell this guy on the program and stuff. And it was just like, I mean, think about it. It's me, 21 years old.
Right.
I went out, I had to go get my hair cut and I had like long hair and stuff. I was just like, I don't want to get my hair cut. And he's like, dude, nobody could take you seriously. I had to go get fitted for suits. the guy's like, here's your briefcase. I was like, what is this for? And he's like, that's for all your paperwork. I was like, I don't carry a briefcase. He's like, you do now. I was just like, what? It was just weird. You know what I mean? It was just,
yeah, no, I know. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like a big,
like you
lift.
said,
yeah,
like you said, it's a complete opposite of everything that I was or was trying to do, or not that I was doing anything, but
no, I mean, I get it.
Just,
you had nothing to lose, right? I mean, that's kind of how you were.
Yeah,
like I got nothing to lose. Let's go do this. I could come back if it doesn't work out, kind of thing. And you know, maybe it would turn into a good thing. It just seems like, you know, because like at one point, when I was becoming a cook, for instance, right, Cease wanted to, you know, get involved with it too, because it sounded like a good thing. Like out of high school, you would enter this apprenticeship program and you would learn how to be a chef, and you didn't have to pay anything. They would pay you, right? So you're getting paid, and you would be learning from chefs how to be a chef. And so it's like better than going to culinary school, as long as your chef was good. And one of the things that, you know, they said was that, you know, you guys can go to Orlando and work with the program there, because that's kind of where it's at with this one chef, Noguchi, and, you know, et cetera. And I explained all of that to Cease, and he would not, he would not go to Orlando. Like he wouldn't, like he was just like, I can't leave here, you know, like it's just like he was frightened of being out on his own,
what may happen,
being away, being, you know, etc., to the point where he couldn't do it. He didn't have the fuck it, you know, what's the worst that could happen, you know what I mean? Like he was actually just genuinely afraid of going there. Now, I didn't end up going there myself. I got, you know, I negotiated to actually learn from the Turkish chef here in Cleveland, which eventually I also worked with the French chef that came and worked with the new restaurant that they opened. But Cease at that point was already out, you know, he didn't want any part of it.
Yeah.
But so it's just a different mindset. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that it's still a big lift. Like, just to basically be like, I'm leaving home. You haven't done that before, and you're going to go live in some place you've never been before, and hope it works out. It's, you know, I don't know. It's just interesting. It's a crazy.
Well, yeah, and that's another part of it is the fact that, I'm gonna have my own place, and I'm gonna do my own thing, and I can get up when I want, or I can get up, you know, I could do this, or I could stay up late, or I could eat this, or you know, that apartment we have is really nice. It was really nice, too nice for us. Oh yeah, vaulted ceiling and stuff. A patio with two doors, one from the bedroom and one from the living room. Hello, that's great. In suite washer and dryer. Then Rom got drunk and busted through the screen door, and I freaked out on him.
You know, I remember.
You know,
I'm gonna use an alias here, but a female friend of ours, Janet, went to visit you guys out there, and no, but she had told me at one point that she had snuck weed in her sock onto the plane and came out there. And I was thinking later, I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like, that's federal. You're in, you know, a federal airport. You know what I mean? Like, are you crazy? Like, it's not just Cleveland cops. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to talk your way? Like, back then too, folks. Today, marijuana, maybe they find it and they're like, just you know, put this away. You know what I mean? But back then, during that whole time period, like, no. I mean, I'm glad she got away with it, but that was a dumb thing to do. Like, my God.
Hey,
my God. What?
Listen, when you're in love with someone, I guess, I don't know. I have no idea if that even is true. Yeah. I don't know. That was a whole. Well,
no, I know that whole story. Yeah, I don't want to get into that. That is a kind of a terrible story. But no, but that was crazy stupid.
Yeah. I remember asking, being like, she's gonna say no. was going to say no. And then she was like, yeah, okay. And then like even like went so far as to like go to my dude's place.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Doesn't even know him and stuff. And was like, yeah, I'm here for Donnie. Because I called them and was like, hey, I'm sending a chick over to.
and not a stupid
they were like,
girl.
okay.
She's not dumb at all. Like, she was actually a smart girl.
No.
Yeah. I don't get it, man.
Except for Dayton Packard.
Well.
What?
Whatever. We won't get it.
Yeah.
Anyway. But, yeah.
So, yeah. I came back from Oklahoma. I went straight back to Chi-Chi's. I don't know if you had something planned to say.
No, go on. Yeah,
that's
it. I didn't
went straight,
quite remember that. Yeah, so that's good to remember. Yeah.
Went straight back to Chi-Chi's. And like you said, at that time, I was making like $6 an hour.
Right.
Working there. And eventually got into some stuff with the manager and quit. I just walked out. I was like, you know what? Screw you. And left. Told Curtis, sorry, Curtis, I got to go. And then that's when I got that job at Marco's.
10 years or something. Yeah.
Yeah. They were like, Curtis, this place is closed. There's nobody here. I don't care. Get out of here. It's my store. He still wears that Chi-Chi's jacket. He's got one of them satin Chi-Chi's jackets. He walks around and it's just like, seriously, dude, how's the logo still on there?
It's hilarious.
But that was like you said, where you were saying like, oh, if I can make $10 an hour, I can survive. Right. And that's when I quit Chi-Chi's. I was driving around and I go down Center Ridge and I pass this place that I've never seen before called Marco's Pizza.
Yeah.
And I look at it and in the window it says hiring drivers, earn up to $15 an hour.
Right.
And I was just like, what? It's like I could do that. And that was, and it wasn't 15. You don't get paid $15 an hour. You get like $7 an hour. And then you get tips or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, it was pretty decent because you managed to. I think that was at some point I don't know much longer it was from that because you worked there for a while, but you did have that apartment out in Mayfield Heights or something or Maple Heights.
Well, that was Maple Heights. Yeah.
Was that? Well,
I had the one in Oakwood. Oh, I had that one over here in Oakwood that we used to meet in Sundays and play games.
Yeah, no, I remember that with the one you had with Clint, right? But was the the Mayfield Maple Heights? That was after that.
After Oakwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then I moved out to Maple Heights by myself.
Yeah.
And then everybody was like, "Why are you living in Maple? Why did you move all the way out to Maple Heights?" And it was like, because Gilly's the building manager, and I didn't really have to fill out an application or nothing. He just gave me the keys and said, "Go ahead."
Yeah. Well, that can't
and
be
let
bad.
me in.
Yeah.
So. Right. And it was pretty affordable. It was like a 2-bedroom apartment. It was a nice place.
No, you were making it at that point. Like you were doing all right.
I was making it. That's the thing is I'm driving from Maple Heights to North Ridgeville to work at Marco's.
Well, that was dumb.
I was surviving. Yeah, it was real bad.
Yeah, no, but even with Clint, you were doing all right. I mean, Clint's actually, all right. Yeah. Like I don't think he would have been a bad roommate. He just told stories sometimes that you just had to scratch your head about and wonder if they're true or not.
Sitting there with no shirt on, talking to you, trying to keep a straight face. Like, dude, put some clothes on. Like, come on. We got people over. We're all guys. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it does. We're all uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, towards the end of living in Oakwood Estates, I started working. That's when I started working for my brother because he called me up at Marco's and he goes, hey, I got an opportunity for you if you want to work in the warehouse. I was like, really? He goes, yeah, $10 an hour. This is why it's funny. He goes, $10 an hour, 40 hours a week. And I was just like, I'm in. Because at that point, that's when I was like, there we go.
Yep.
Here we go. This is a solid. I'm working in a warehouse. I load trucks and deliver them.
Yeah.
I'm like, this I can do. And then, of course, the company shut down. But
yeah, no, I mean,
but that started me into the laboring and working in the steel mill and all that.
You would be akin to probably making about $20 an hour today just because everything's so expensive right now. Rent is way more and everything, everything you just have to pay more and stuff. It's just more expensive to live than it was back then. I'm not saying the cost of living has doubled since that time, but I just mean like to be able to survive on your own, you'd have to get maybe not exactly $20 an hour. Maybe you could do it for $17 an hour or something, but I don't think you could do it for just 15. Like 15 might not be enough. Maybe it would be tough. I mean, people do it, but it's just like, there's a comfort spot in it, like you're making enough where you can put a little bit of money on the side so that when that car breaks down, that it inevitably
Right.
will, you can pay to get it fixed, where, if you just scrape by, it's almost impossible to do anything. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like my attitude back then. I was very depressed after my girlfriend and I broke up. I had to move out because I was still living with Cease, but I told him, I said, I gotta get my own place because, I mean, the thing is it was like he had a girlfriend at the time, and so like he was constantly having her over, and they were like, whatever, having relations and all this sort of stuff, and I'm just in the house and I'm thinking to myself like, this is just reminding me of what I don't have. And I also just didn't really like where we were at. And I never did. Like, my dad had moved us there because it was cheaper than North Olmsted, but it wasn't a great place. Like, the apartment was just like in this like 4-floor, it looked like one of those Soviet buildings or something. And, it was far away from, like, it's in the bottom of the county, right? And about 20 minutes or so away from where we used to live in North Olmsted, 25 minutes. So it was kind of a distance from there, and it was a distance from downtown. And I'm like, I got to get the fuck out of here. Like, this sucks. Like, I got, and it wasn't Cease and I didn't talk for a long time after that. I don't think he was specifically angry at me over that, but I think he might have had some anger because he ended up having to go live at home for a little while. But he eventually moved out with some other friends of his that also let him down. But I was just in a bad state. Yeah, I got that apartment, and part of it was just that I needed to reconnect with my friends like you guys, because I had, when you're with somebody, you might have had this when you were dating Sue. I don't know. But when you're with somebody for such a long period of time, you become like you're kind of like this partnership. Like, you're planning things to do as a couple all the time. Like, the weekend comes, you're like, this is what we're going to do as a couple. We're going to go to do this thing and that thing. And you become like this unit. People expect you, if you're going to go to a party, you're going to go together. If you're going to, X, Y, and Z. And so when that partnership breaks off, then you're kind of sitting there like, who am I? Like, who am I? Because I don't even know who I used to be, like this, unit of two people. And now I'm like by myself, and it's like, what do I do now? Because I'm completely lost. Yeah.
And even then it's like, you're like, okay, so they're having this party or whatever, and I'll go. You're like, oh, I think I'll go. But then you think about it, you're like, all anybody's going to do is be like, so what happened? Like, hey, and bringing up everything that you don't want to talk. Like, I came here to forget about that,
Yeah, but it was also just like, I didn't hang out with you guys that, I mean, for the most part in that time period where I wasn't hanging out with you guys, it was mostly you guys were essentially doing adversary stuff. And it was so that was like the Mark Shea period, and a lot of that era that I wasn't, hanging out with you guys. And then, but when I started, Fairview Apartment, that turned out to be a good thing because, we all reconnected and we had a lot of laughs and stuff at that time. And that was okay, but I didn't date anybody I dated a couple of people, didn't, have a relationship with or whatever, but I dated a couple of people like that, Gretchen and, Lori's sister, a couple of blind dates, things like that, but
where I come from, they call it parking.
Right. Yes. That guy. Right. That was a blind date too. Yeah. I got pulled over. Like, I was looking for this girl's house, and it was out in, it was kind of a nice neighborhood or whatever, but who knows? My car wasn't crappy at that point, but maybe it wasn't new or something. And, I found the house, and I didn't pull up in the driveway because I wasn't 100% sure it was the house, and I didn't want to just go into their drive, because it's embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, people looking at you and stuff. So, I had parked on the street, and a cop is behind me, and turns their lights on my car and everything. And the cop comes up to me and he's like, "What are you doing?" Blah blah blah. And I'm like, I had kind of a bit of a attitude because, I had just parked my car. You know what I mean? Like I didn't do anything, you know? But so I was a little bit snarky or whatever you want to use for the word. and the cop's like, what do you, what are you doing? Yeah. Et cetera. And he's like, I see you come here, you're driving around, you're looking at things, you pull over, you shut your lights off. So what am I supposed to think? And I was like, well, in my town, we call that parking. And he didn't.
He didn't see the joke in it.
Not really. I didn't get a ticket, but yeah, I mean, I kind of quieted him up because that's what I was doing. Like, what is he talking about?
One of my favorite stories of all time.
It was just.
I love that one when you told them.
It's just so stupid. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I did go out with that girl. She was all right. We went out twice, but the second time she got fucking hammered, and it wasn't worth pursuing. But
anyways.
I had done a bunch of things like that, but nothing ever stuck. And I basically didn't go steady with anybody for over 6 years at that point. So I was going through a real transition. It was difficult because I found like my girlfriend before that had happened was she excelled at a lot of things, and it was difficult to kind of date somebody that was ordinary, I would suppose. And I'm not saying that it's bad on their. It was bad for me because I just was I was looking for something that didn't exist, and judging people by things that weren't fair to them. But that's just what you do when you're young and you're kind of blind and inexperienced and that kind of thing. And it took me a long time to get over all that stuff and kind of figure myself out. I still haven't figured myself. Let's be honest. I never got married or anything, but I got better at the whole dating thing than I did at that point. I do think that though, like I spent most of that time, I never went to bars or anything because it cost money, didn't go drinking. You didn't do a lot of that either. And, other than flashes and, right. I think like maybe I should have done that a little bit more in order to socialize and get out because I did spend a lot of times just sitting in that apartment, you know what I mean? Doing nothing. And, not bad when you guys would be over, or sometimes my brother, when he was running the switcher, he would come over and stuff and be like, hey, and hang out with us. But, when I'm just by myself, you work all day, you come home second shift. It's like 11 o'clock at night. You're up until 4 a.m. and you're just sitting there like, what am I doing with myself? Like I'm all alone in this thing. And, it's messed up. And it's probably why I lived with Amber there at the end, but yeah, it didn't go well. That was crazy back then. Yeah.
Wild West.
I lived with this girl and she had been my friend since I was 16 or whatever. And she was okay personality wise. She had just gone through a divorce though. So she was kind of a bit moody, but she was all right. We weren't dating, even though we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment together. We would sort of trade off the bed because I worked second shift. She worked first shift. She should get up early in the morning and leave to go to work. And like she would, sometimes the alarm would go off and she just wouldn't stop the alarm. Like it would just keep going.
Forever.
Right. And Don was
wake me up.
Right. Real late one time, passed out. And says to me, he's like, are you going to go in there? Because I think she's dead. It's just crazy how long she would sleep with that alarm going off. Like just shut it off. It's crazy.
Her alarm to wake up was my signal. As soon as I heard the alarm, I was like, all right, Amber's getting up. I'm out.
Yeah, you didn't want to be there when she got it. No, I mean, it was just awkward in general. That didn't last long because it was just odd. And I went to go live with Dan at that point, which was also
and there's a
whole nother thing.
Awful.
Yeah, also totally awful. And a whole nother scenario.
You're like, I'm living in a house with a guy and there's no phone here out in the middle of cornfields. Isn't that what it was? Like you had no phone.
Yeah, we didn't have a phone. He never paid any bills. He paid no bills. We didn't have anything. I mean, it was crazy. We barely had power. You know what, folks? What we should probably do, because we're always talking about these people, is we should just have an episode where we talk about one person and how we met them and what they're all about and why we know them, because the stories we can tell about some of these people is just ridiculous. Yeah.
Right. Well, when I first started doing tumbling with tumbleweed, I did that remember that first episode, which was just a mess. And then there was like, I did like a second episode or two, like two more or whatever after that. I was trying to just get my thing. And then after that, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'll tell you what, everybody, all these people we've talked about, I'm going to have them on the show. I'm going to have somebody on the show every week that you've heard about. Yeah. And that first week I did Kevin Rom, and he came out all drunk and started playing music like over the phone and stuff. And I'm like, dude, shut it off. I'm like, you can't have music on here. They're going to shut me down. They're not going to play this. I go, what are you doing? And he's just like, just laughing. It's like, no, I'm trying to get stories. I'm trying to talk to him and stuff. Like, come on, give me these. So, and that's when I was just like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to get these idiots on here.
We should really talk about each one of them. I mean, we could just talk about Dan and Rom, and there's enough to talk about both of those guys. Adam, oof. I mean, every one of them. Tom, it doesn't matter who it is. They're all. There's so many stories. Although they probably listen to this one, they'd be like, "You guys are dicks" or something. But I'd be like, "Look, right. I'm just telling the truth. I had to live through it. I had to hang around you."
Like, that's when if they get mad, you just be like, "Am I lying?" Right. Well, like, okay, then go away.
Probably don't remember the things they did, but no, I don't know. We'll pick up on that maybe next week or something. We still have more topics to go through on the list of topics as well. If you'd like to write in the show, write to oblast@vgn.us. And don't forget our Patreon, patreon.com/VGN, because you can listen to all the shows rather than one every other week. And otherwise, we have an outro. So thanks for listening. See ya.
Peace.
You've been listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin. If you'd like to write into the show, send an email to oblast@vgn.us. That is VGN as in video game news. And be sure to check out our Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/VGN, where you can get all of our shows, our videos, and some musings. Be sure to tune in each week for new episodes on our Patreon page or every other week on the public RSS feed that you're subscribed to now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Peace.